Hey, Segovia, back with another one. Coming up today, y'all, we got one conspiracy theory from each state in America. So we got 50 total clips coming up today. We got a long video, so I ain't gonna do too much talking today. Let's get into it.
American history that you did not learn in school. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment. In the 1930s, the United States had a huge health crisis. 1 in 10 Americans had syphilis, and researchers at the time felt that the way it affects the body differs by race. Again, this was just a hypothesis, but there was only one way to know for sure. The U.S. Public Health Service lured 400 poor black men into a special healthcare program. Some of the men had syphilis and some of the others didn't. Now, they were told that they would be receiving free healthcare, medication, and other treatments to help any sort of condition that they may have. This was a lie. In reality, the researchers wanted to see the long-term effects of syphilis on the body when it went untreated. And so the medication that they once gave them were soon switched out with placebos. The
Mm.
men were also given several painful spinal injections. Many of the men died during this. For the researchers, that wasn't an issue. They offered to pay for the funeral expenses if the families gave them permission to continue experimenting on the corpse. Somehow, this story gets even more messed up because about 10 years into this study, a legitimate cure for syphilis was found, but the researchers didn't care. They said this study was too vital and they didn't know if they would ever get another chance to perform something like this. And so this experiment went on for another 30 years. During this time, another 100 men would pass away. And since syphilis was highly contagious, they passed it along to their wives, and the ones who were pregnant passed it along to their children. Thankfully, this nightmare did come to an end in 1972 when an insider went to the media. About another 20 years after that, President Clinton issued a national apology, and the men were compensated. The ones who survived got about 37,000 each, and the ones who had passed, their families got about 15,000 each. By the way, there are still some families fighting the courts to this day to get their compensation. Oh, and the researchers' hypothesis was incorrect. Turns out a deadly disease affects a white person and a black person
Mm.
the same. Who would
Shocking.
have thought?
Hidden in the remote wilderness of Alaska, surrounded by endless snow and ice, lies a facility veiled in secrecy and fear, HARP. Today on Spooky Things About Alaska, we're talking about the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HARP. HARP was designed to study the ionosphere, how it affects satellite communication, how it responds to solar activity, and how it influences the Earth's weather patterns. But some rumors suggest a darker purpose. They say HARP can control the weather and even our minds. Some suggest that HARP can cause natural disasters such as hurricanes, tsunamis, and earthquakes, and some claim it's used for mind control, based on the idea that radio waves could influence human behavior. Some people even believe that HARP is used to communicate with extraterrestrial life. Is it just paranoia, or is there something more to these tales? It's a mystery that haunts Alaska's wilderness.
On March 13, 1997, thousands of witnesses saw a massive, silent, V-shaped craft glide across the Arizona sky. Some said it was a mile wide. This included pilots, police, and even the governor. The governor at the time, Fife Symington, staged a press conference the next day and even had someone dress up in an alien costume to make it a joke. Years later, Fife admitted he was under pressure to keep the people calm and secretly called the event otherworldly. The military later claimed that the lights were just flares from a training exercise. And yes, that does explain the second set of lights around 10 p.m. But here's the thing. The first sighting, hours earlier, was a massive craft passing overhead. Flares can't do that. So was half the story real and the other half kept quiet?
And these things are still, we're still dealing with this CIA Contra deal. Still to this day, they're still bringing drugs in from Mexico, from China. Who do you think's letting all those through? You know what I mean?
Creepiest and weirdest conspiracy theory says that for the last 140 years or so, many of the most powerful men in the world, and it is only men, gather at this secret location to perform a ritual in front of a giant owl statue. The place is called Bohemian Grove, they say, and attendees include almost every former president, CEOs, any power player in society. They gather here once a year in front of the owl and the bonfire. But the weirdest and most chilling part of all of this is that it's totally true and not controversial. You can go to Wikipedia, just go look up Bohemian
It's
Grove.
true.
It's a known location. You can go there right now. It's all fenced off. It even includes a photo from one of the gatherings. This is from 1967. There's Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, all just sitting around the table. The ceremony they perform in front of the owl statue is called cremation of care, and the powerful people dress up in costumes. The giant owl statue is called the Owl Shrine, and it has speakers and audio equipment inside of it so that it can speak to them in a booming voice. One of the first meetings to discuss the Manhattan Project happened at Bohemian Grove. And yes, it's still in operation. Recent attendees include Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. This, by the way, is why I so strongly dislike fake conspiracy theories, because you don't need to make things up. Powerful people are weirdos.
Conspiracy theorists believe it's actually a bunker or underground city. Phil Snyder, a government engineer who was known to work on deep underground military bases, worked on the airport when it was being built. He claimed that DIA was 8 levels deep, not 6. He alleged it was connected to a nationwide underground base network. He later became a whistleblower speaking about deep underground military bases, and he was found unalived in 1996. Officially ruled a suicide, but the circumstances were highly suspicious.
Did you guys know that there's a place called Lyme, Connecticut?
No.
Okay. So if you look into Plum Island off the coast of Connecticut, there is a bioweapons lab that they've tested, many diseases on animals and whatnot. And they have these ticks, these Lone Star ticks, right? And essentially they weaponize the ticks with Lyme disease. And then that's how we got, what we know today as Lyme disease, because it started in Lyme, Connecticut. Okay. Precursor to that, during the Cold War, there was an operation that the CIA released called Operation Mongoose. You guys heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so during the Cold War, the same thing was happening. They were weaponizing ticks because they wanted to get Fidel Castro in Cuba and overthrow the government. So they bioengineered these ticks with Lyme disease and then released them on the sugarcane workers to cripple Cuba. And it's a cheap way to do it, right? So they're essentially saying the way they did this is the poor man's nuke, right? So they're saying that they can affect 10,000 people for about $1.40 a day. So $1.40 gets you 10,000 people wiped out.
Wow.
So you can cripple their system. You can overrun their medical system without destroying their resources. That's why they call it the poor man's nuke. And this is during the Cold War. And then that was the precursor to what we know as Lyme disease today.
Prior to that, there was never Lyme disease. They made it up.
They made it up. I mean, there's a place called Lyme, Connecticut. That's where it originated from. After the Cold War, about 10 years removed, they started to release it. And if you look at these ticks, they weren't native to that area, right? So this is happening again. Did you guys know this? It's starting to happen again.
With what?
With what?
The ticks. So here's the thing. These random ticks that aren't native to Texas and Nebraska, and they're moving north, these ticks are giving people alpha-gal syndrome. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
So alpha-gal syndrome is to where, in layman's terms, you can't eat meat anymore, red meat.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Now, why do you think that is?
Why can't you eat red meat anymore?
Well, think about this. Bill Gates, he wants you to eat
Synthetic meat.
synthetic 3D printed meat.
It's a common theme in today's video and all the videos that these powers that be, they got so much conflict with each other. The Cuba, the Americans, the North Koreans, the Russians, the Ukraines, all these people going at each other, right? The powers that be got personal problems with each other. Saddam did this to George Bush's dad. So now we the people are the ones that suffer from this. The powers that be, they get away scot-free. They take pictures together. They go and shake each other's hands when they greet each other. But we, the people, are the ones that suffer from these powers that be little hissy fits they throw.
How DuPont poisoned the world. DuPont, which as of 2017 is now known as Dow DuPont, was the creator of Teflon, which is used in everything from non-stick pans to waterproof clothing. Pretty much everything you come into contact with nowadays has some form of Teflon. One of the main ingredients in Teflon and what gives it its non-stick properties is a chemical called C8. It is a PFOA, which, to give you the abbreviated version, is a perfluorochemical, which is very bad for your health in large quantities and very bad for the environment. Both DuPont and 3M were aware of the dangers of C8 as they had been studying it since the 1960s, yet they still continued to dump it into waterways, poisoning and killing people. One former DuPont employee, Sue Bailey, after working for DuPont for years handling the chemical C8, her son was born with birth defects like half of a nose, one nostril, and a serrated eyelid. Yet DuPont tried to say they had no blame. As of 2015, these chemicals have been banned.
Tesla famously said that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Coral Castle is located in Florida. There's a guy named Edward Leedsklinen. He was somehow able to harvest, cut, and hoist over 1,000 tons without any equipment. But you can still go see it today, and you'll see these massive blocks. According to neighbors and people in the know back then, he would work on this at night when no one could see him. And neighbors say they could hear him whistling while he built. And you can see photos of this contraption. It was a tripod with like a magnetic box at the top and a magnetic crank at the bottom. When someone asked him how he built this, he basically said, I'm paraphrasing, I've discovered how the pyramids were built. And most likely it was some type of sound or electromagnetic energy. How did a 5-foot-tall guy do this without any major earth movers, tractors, cranes?
Now, have you heard of the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes.
All right. The Georgia Guidestones were an astronomical calendar and clock. And there's a thin little straw hole that you look through, and there's Polaris. It's been there since it was built in 1981. And so we went there and we looked through and did a time lapse, and Polaris is staying right in that hole. Well, it's been up for over 40 years. So it would be at least one moon width out of that hole, which is significant, but it was still there in the middle of the hole. I made a video about that. It started going viral. It was uploaded to hundreds of channels. And then about a week later, a terrorist blew up the Georgia Guidestones. And 3 hours later, the bulldozers were there, knocked the whole thing down, stole the time capsule, and no investigation ever happened.
Is that a fact?
Fact. Look it up.
See, again, then why wouldn't someone just stick a hole? Like go out with a pole and stick a hole?
They did. It was up for 41 years. I actually had a pipe in my backyard bolted to my house that I can see Polaris, and I had it up for years. Right? My parents weren't happy because I put a hole in the side of the house to do it, but I was fascinated. Long before I was a flat earther, I was just like, wow, there's Polaris. And I could always find Polaris by looking through the pipe. They made one for us, and it was there, and the pyramids are there, but now the story is, well, it didn't point towards then. But we know when the Georgia Guidestones were built. We know that Polaris was still in the hole. There's also another place called Coral Castle that has a little X in this pyramid, this pillar.
Then what is it? What sticks?
It's electrostatics. Everything has an electrostatic charge. The earth is a neutral or negative charge. The sky has a positive charge, and anything off the ground is surrounded by that positive charge. Since the earth isn't moving, it says down is this way, and then buoyancy and density sort everything else out. If I had a helium balloon, ping pong balls, and marbles, and I held them over a swimming pool and opened my hand, the balloon's going to go up because it's less dense in the air. The marbles and ping pong balls will go down because they're more dense in the air. The marbles will go to the bottom of the pool because they're more dense than the water. That's buoyancy and density. Down is down because of the electrostatic charge. Lightning sometimes strikes down next to somebody and they go flying in the air. Did it turn off gravity, or did it just change the polarity of the earth for a split second? The XRT-3B triangular aircraft lifts and propels itself with electrostatics. We should all have flying cars that run on free energy right now, but they're hiding everything from us. They're hiding more land, in my opinion. They're hiding free energy. They're hiding our divinity. They're hiding our true potential. They're hiding resources. Why the lie?
Fun little fact about Pearl Harbor. We're taught that Japan just bombed us, right? But that's really stupid. Japan was fighting a war against China, and they are a battle for the Pacific. They're part of the Axis powers. I'm not saying that we intentionally made or forced Japan to attack us to give us an excuse to get into the war. What I'm saying is that we caused Japan to bomb Pearl Harbor. This is what happened. So Japan does not produce its own energy. And when you are in the middle of a war and industrialization, you need to feed the war machine. And in order to feed the war machine, you need oil. Japan is importing lots of oil. America, the education does not teach you. It never taught you about the embargo, okay, and about the blockade. The United States did a blockade around Japan. This is before Pearl Harbor, preventing oil from getting to Japan. People think Japan just went and attacked America. We're just told on December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and forced America to enter the war. They wanted to cripple the Navy because the Navy was the ones that were in charge of the blockade. Whether it's a good thing that we did this and provoke them into it so we could get into the war with the justification and then help the world be free from Nazis and Japanese mad scientists, that's an opinion. That's fine. I have nothing against that. This is how it happened. We provoked them. So here's the history. Now, here's the conspiracy part. Number one, on the island of Oahu, Pearl Harbor. Why was it that every major battleship and aircraft carrier destroyer was sitting in one spot? It was almost like it was gift wrapped. Number two, people that were working at that time on ships that were out here with early radar who had detected Japanese aircraft coming inbound. So there are some people who believe that not only were they provoked, that they wanted to make sure it was a big enough hit that it could justify Congress and our government to declare entry into the war.
Ruby, two of the biggest events to ever happen in American history we're getting into today, and there's a lot of shady business that went on, and a lot of death came from Pearl Harbor, right? Not just the event, but the war. I'm sure there was a lot of offing of oneself post-war. All the Americans and all the other people in the war that passed due to that event. And then we got 9/11 coming up in New York, and we'll get into that a little later, but a lot of fishy business went on with that.
Which, by the way, is seen as a success by the FBI.
Which is crazy.
Which is fucking bananas.
Tell people if they don't know what Ruby Bridge was. Tell
Yes.
them the story behind it.
So Randy Weaver, a Green Beret from Vietnam, shacks up in rural Idaho, and he decides that he wants to have a life off-grid. And the FBI, doing an investigation with the ATF, finds out that he has some kind of gun issue, and they need to do an investigation, and they need to go on site. But this is almost, it's crazy because there's similarities with our situation. You find out the guy's background. Like if you're developing a target packet on a bad guy, you would want to know the guy's background, right? That's the first thing you do because you want to assess potential risk to force and you want to mitigate risk overall. What's his background? Green Beret, Vietnam. Oh, fuck, right? Then everybody gets all fucking crazy, right? They start going, oh, we need to find out more. So they do surveillance. They don't just do off-site surveillance. They don't do long-range surveillance. They get in ghillie suits and low crawl to his fucking cabin, right, in ghillie suits. His son and his dog are out on the property because it's his fucking property, and they discover these guys in ghillie suits. The son raises his rifle, shoots and kills one of the FBI guys, and the FBI guys kill his son. So what would you do if you own property in rural anywhere in America, you hear gunshots, and your fucking son's dead, and you don't know what's going on? And it's a bunch of dudes in ghillie suits. So he winds up locking himself and barricading himself in the cabin, and then they deploy the FBI hostage rescue team, HRT. I actually interviewed one of the guys that was he was in the sniper site as a sniper for FBI HRT when this went down. So long story short, they kill his wife as well, shoot his wife.
While she was holding a baby.
They think, talking to one of the snipers, they thought that he was charging them into their position, but he was fake charging. He was making like a gesture like he was charging. So they got panicky and they started breaking shots off at him. I don't know if they wounded him, maybe wounded him, but he gets back inside, and so they dump the next person they saw, which happened to be the wife. So they end up barricading the place even more. And his ex-commander is the one that basically does a
Rambo.
call out and gets him to negotiate and then eventually gets him to surrender.
You need to go to the people that started whatever happening with us. This shit go way deeper than us. From how it's poverty in the neighborhoods to all that type of shit. Like that shit don't come. They bunched us in and treat us like lab rats and shit. And oh, let's throw this out there and see how they react. That's how shit really. That we didn't put drugs in the streets and make gangs and shit. That shit started from, you know what I'm saying? Like shit dealing with the government and shit, bro. That ain't had nothing to do with us.
Like first and foremost, if niggas don't know, we was slaves and shit before. We ain't who brought gangs and all that to the, like they brought drugs to the hood. They brought gang. This shit not ours. We wasn't in the hood. It was like, you know what? We finna create this, folks. So who brought it to the hood, folks? That's what we need to all be thinking. Like, who brought this doctrine to the hood, folks? And when we believe, the only thing it was, I'm BD, folks, GD. Where that come from? Who created? Don't tell me King David created this. David ain't create that. They ain't create that, bro. Like, I know that they the face behind it, but who brought it to David and them and say, man, we gonna bring this to y'all so that y'all can eat or bring these drugs? Who brought this destruction to our hood, folks? Maybe the same people that put us there.
It was tough.
In Southern, there's tons of clips of people, that come out and say, like in LA, they used to always, people get beat with the bat, maybe get stabbed here and there, maybe shot with like an old school revolver or something. But then one day these kids would be playing at the train tracks, throwing rocks at the trains and all that, and they'd find crates of Uzis, AK-47s, fully automatic, semi-automatic weapons, just a pallet of it right there. They go tell the older people come take. It's very deep, y'all. It's very deep. The inner city, the drug, down to the Planned Parenthood, down to the to the food stamps, to whatever Social Security and all that. It's very deep. No man's allowed to be in the house. You know what that does to a young kid. Like, it's very deep, y'all. Very deep.
Indiana, a quiet military base, once held some of America's most classified Cold War operations. Camp Atterbury, built during World War II near Edinburgh, trained tens of thousands of soldiers before shifting focus in the 1950s. As tensions with the Soviet Union grew, the base became a hub for intelligence training and nuclear readiness drills. Declassified documents now show Atterbury housed mock Soviet villages where U.S. troops practiced urban warfare. It even coordinated refugee resettlement after crises like the Hungarian Revolution and later Afghanistan. Locals whispered about underground tunnels and secret bunkers, and while most rumors were false, parts of the base remained sealed. Today, Atterbury is back in the spotlight, training National Guard units and providing humanitarian aid. The ghosts of the Cold War linger there, reminders that Indiana played a bigger role in global defense than most people ever knew. Follow Hoosier History for more stories of Indiana's hidden heroes and secret history.
I hate to break it to you, that's not nature. That is fully man-made. Iowa is, for its size, the most terraformed place on Earth. There's no more changed place on Earth than Iowa. And because you can see outside of a building for miles and miles, you go, wow, look at all that nature. I'm like, the difference between Iowa and a factory is we didn't put walls around the whole state.
Yeah.
And we, now, to be fair, by golly, we're the best factory for what we grow in the world. We're really good at it. Very talented, very hardworking humans. That's not the wall we're running into. We're running into a big old wall called people's pockets. And that is a huge deal. There are, let's take the individual farmers out of it, because most farmers that I know make a fair or a little over fair wage, a little above average wage. I have no problem with that. They work hard. I want them to have their wage.
I'll tell you what there's the one thing that's going to be their downfall, the powers that be that are running this right now, is now they're really starting to hit our pockets, y'all. Yeah, with groceries, with gas, interest rates, prices of vehicles, right? Luxury things that at the end of the day we don't really need, minus the groceries and all that, right? But they're starting to hit us utility bills. Everyday things we need going from $100 to $400 overnight. That's going to be their downfall, y'all. That's where we're going to start coming together, I believe. Hopefully.
The other day, something I like to do once every 5 years at least. I did
Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz.
Incredible.
Have you seen this?
The fuck
It's one
you
of the
talking about?
greatest anomalies and coincidences in the history of art.
What are you talking about? You don't know about this?
Hey, did you know that if you listen to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and watch hardcore pornography, it doesn't sync up at all?
So Fort Knox is one of the places, the physical places in the United States where we're told our gold is stored.
And we're going to go into Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there.
You know, members of Congress, almost all of them with the last name Paul, have been calling for an audit of Fort Knox for, just decades. And if you really press, it doesn't look like Fort Knox has been actually audited for close to 100 years since the 30s. I think that's right. They said it was audited in the 70s, but it wasn't actually audited. Why is it so hard with a federal workforce, including contractors of like 10 million people, to just go through the contents of the vaults and weigh them and make sure that they're not gold-plated titanium and make sure they're all there and then figure out who owns them? Why is that so hard? We're told, oh, that's too complicated. Really?
I want to say after World War II, we had 18,000 tons of gold, official gold. And by the time we got to call it 71, we were down to the 8,100 we have today. And
no way.
That was not a hurricane. That was not a natural disaster. That was mass genocide. That was all about a land grab. That was all about gentrification. This reminds me of exactly what happened in Oscarville, Georgia, when it was flooded and they created Lake Lanier. 20 years later, and the truth is finally starting to come to the light. Everything the media told us 20 years ago was an absolute lie. Ryan Coogler just recently came out with a documentary regarding Hurricane Katrina, and it exposed so many things that a lot of us knew for so long. Not only that, there are so many survivors speaking out on TikTok that are sharing their stories. And when I tell you, it is gut-wrenching, it is horrifying, it is horrific. These people lived an absolute nightmare, okay? All I'm going to say is, if you have not watched this documentary, please go watch it. Follow the hashtag, y'all. These stories are so mind-blowing that I can't even put them into words right now. It's unreal, y'all. Heartbreaking. That's all I'm going to say.
There's some spooky shit in the woods here. There's a section, not even a mile from right where we're sitting here, that I grouse hunt. Every time I hunt there, I get these weird feelings I want to get the hell out of here. That stretch of river has been considered haunted.
Really?
Yes. Any honest person who spent time in the Maine woods at night will tell you there's something up there. And there are tons of accounts of it.
Yeah.
From the early white settlers here, from the Passamaquoddy, the
Native American.
Yeah, exactly. I guess in general, I feel like the separation, the veil, the membrane between this world and the spiritual world is thinner in the woods.
I agree.
You walk into a clearing, the sun's coming down through the trees, and you're like, oh, God created this. Thank you, God. And then there are other moments where you just feel deep, terrifying menace. Man, I was midway down this path on my property that we've had for many years. I know every inch of it. All of a sudden, I had this feeling like, oh my gosh, pure terror. It came out of nowhere. I felt like I was going to freak out. I had to get a hold of myself.
Yeah.
What is that?
Did you know that just weeks after 9/11, mysterious letters filled with deadly anthrax spores
I remember this,
arrived
the
at news
anthrax
stations
scare.
and the offices of 2 senators who opposed the Patriot Act? The white powder inside those envelopes killed 5 people and terrorized an entire nation. But here's where things get strange. The FBI traced the anthrax back to a highly classified strain called Ames, stored at only one place in America, Fort Detrick, Maryland's top secret biological weapons facility. After 7 years of investigation, they blamed Dr. Bruce Ivins, a scientist who worked there. But Ivins died by before he could defend himself. His colleagues insist the sophisticated weaponization and process required equipment and expertise no single person possessed. Even stranger, the attacks perfectly justified massive increases in biodefense spending for Fort Detrick, the same facility with a history of deadly safety violations and secret experiments on unwitting subjects. The letters targeted senators blocking surveillance expansion. The timing couldn't have been more convenient for those seeking broader government powers. Was this really the work of one troubled scientist, or something far more calculated?
No. What are some of the worst abuses in MK Ultra?
There were many. The Frank Olson case, which was referenced earlier, that was a murder. I don't believe that was. The motivation was because he was going to be a whistleblower. He worked at the CIA, he worked in the development of biological weapons, and he was planning to go public and announced that the United States government was using biological weapons in the Korean War. And also he was going to share what he knew about MK Ultra experiments, including lethal experiments. And there's a documented case.
How many, gentlemen, how many people do you think died through the MK Ultra program or were murdered?
No idea.
If those who died largely were outside the United States, many people were experimented to death in that safe house in Germany that I visited, and people in the neighborhood told me they knew what was going on in that house, and that people who were experimented to death are now buried in what used to be forest plots that are now covered over
Do you
with
think the
apartments.
German government knew what the U.S. government was doing? Do you think there was a partnership there or knowledge?
Yes. There is a memo that was written by the German Secret Service to Konrad Adenauer, the Chancellor of Germany, telling him Americans are here capturing citizens, capturing people and conducting extreme experiments which are in violation of German law. And Adenauer decided to put that aside and not to
I
investigate
have one more
further.
question because I have 15 seconds. Is this a massive cover-up by the U.S. government?
It's certainly a cover-up of what happened in the past.
Mr. O'Neill?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
You got 15 seconds. We're talking about, this is like a debate. You know, what are you going to do with your next term? 10 seconds, go. Like, this is something important. What do you mean you got 15 seconds? You're going to cut the mic. Like, what's coming from this? These people went and put drugs in people and made them do crazy things and tested crazy things. And why are you having this hearing? Why are you putting this out to the public when nothing's going to come from it? I said this before. Is the CIA getting shut down for all these things they've done? Is the FBI going to get shut down for all these crazy things it's done? Is anybody going to get held accountable for this? Is any medals that you might have gave these people, are they going to get revoked? Like, God forbid I smoke weed, you're going to take my gold medal away, right? Or you're going to take my sponsorship away. Speaking about an athlete or something, y'all, but like, what's going to come from this?
Understand that there are far too many places that don't have clean waters. So, you know.
Flintman?
I mean, they're doing it to us too, not just the homeless. Why does McDonald's in America allowed to have all these cancerous, poisonous, addicting chemicals in their food, but just in another country they're not allowed to do that, and their people are thriving. There's no obesity, you know, they're active, you know, the cancer rates are down over there. Like, they're doing that to and heart disease, all that, y'all. People are dying every day because of McDonald's. But you just go, you hear people say, I went to McDonald's in, I don't know, a different country. I ate and I felt amazing. I actually lost weight. I ate McDonald's every day. I didn't feel like eating the food over there and getting sick. So I just ate what I know, McDonald's. Guess what? I came back and lost weight. Didn't get lethargic, nothing.
Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday, children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children, and this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing, and like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
Man. Can I piggyback a story? It's super short.
Hop on, buddy.
Dude, there's a weird way to say that. No, this is called the Pascagoula abduction. Have we talked about that? Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker?
I don't know.
So, short story, they were in Mississippi fishing a river.
I've heard this. I don't know if we talked about it.
Okay, yeah, they get abducted. And, you know, typical experience, they encounter robotic, though, is what they say, like robotic beings. And when they suddenly reappear on the bank of the shore, they like drive away, but then like have this ominous feeling where they looking back, and they said they see things watching them, tall, slender, robotic creatures, like beings on the like silhouette on the hillside, but they're somehow keeping up with them, but they don't appear to be running. There's something happening. They're like, I can't process how these things are following us, but it was like they were kind of observing, like, we took them, we put them back, let's see how this goes, and then they just disappear. Well, they immediately report themselves to or report the incident to the sheriff, and at the police station they're like, these guys are full of it. And so they polygraph test, they're passing everything. They're like, okay, well, let's just put them in a room. Let's put these two guys in a room and see how like their story is going to fall apart. They didn't let them know they were being recorded. So they like put a device and they're like, you guys go chill. And apparently the guy's still like shaking and freaking out, like continued to talk about what are we going to do.
In East St. Louis, how they're the military, the U.S. Army just confirmed, yeah, we were actually testing on you guys back during the Cold War, 60s and 70s. So they had these big trucks that go through the city. And there's testimonies of people who are alive today saying when they were a kid, they used to see these huge trucks with these big nozzles on them, and they were spraying. They were just spraying. They're like, what is that? And then like it had like texture to it and smelled weird. They just thought nothing of it, right? They're just like, okay, I guess they're spraying for sanitation or something.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, come to find out, it's a carcinogen that they were spraying. It was causing cancer. Some of the people with testimonies saying they lost their brother to liver cancer and this cancer and this cancer, because they were testing it because they wanted to use it on Russia. They said that part of the region of Illinois had the same terrain as Russia. So they're like, oh, this is a good place to test. Test lab rats, like the CIA. This is what they're doing to us.
I served in Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Exactly, which is why this is super relevant to you.
Absolutely. I served in Malmstrom Air Force Base. I was a missile crew commander deputy commander in Malmstrom Air Force Base. I was a command post commander in Malmstrom Air Force Base. I spent years around these nukes. Weird shit happens all the time around nukes for lots of different reasons. But there was one specific incident when I was in Malmstrom where we had occurrence that was very, very similar to the UFO reports that you've heard from, what's his name, Salas?
Yep, Robert
Lieutenant
Bob Salas.
Yeah, Lieutenant Bob Salas.
Yep.
That kind of event is very, very rare and unique and kind of inexplicable. Like you can't explain how a series of nuclear weapons go off in that fashion. So something like that happened when I was in the command post. Multiple witnesses, multiple reports. We wrote the whole thing up. Now, there wasn't a light in the sky. There wasn't any of the same stuff that Salas reported, except for the systematic shutdown of missiles. Several missiles. When we filled out our report and submitted it up the chain of command, we basically got a response that said, thank you for submitting. The end. Which is really, really unusual. Generally, when you send a report up, you get an explanation down, especially when you're talking about operational weapon systems.
Interesting.
Operational weapon systems, they have to either be tampered with or flawed to have something like that happen. So one way or the other, you would need operational fixes to be put in place. So that's why you would always expect to get a report back that says you were either flawed or you were tampered with. Please take these corrective actions. But to just get a report that says thank you is strange.
What if I told you a major child abuse investigation in America was shut down and every witness who spoke up was silenced? It's the late 1980s in Omaha, Nebraska. A respected businessman named Larry King, not the TV host, but a rising political figure, was running the Franklin Credit Union. On paper, he was a community leader, but behind the scenes, whispers began to spread that he was involved in something far darker. In 1988, investigators uncovered evidence that King had embezzled millions of dollars. But as they dug deeper, several teenagers came forward, claiming they'd been trafficked and abused at parties attended by wealthy businessmen and politicians. They described private jets, luxury hotels, and powerful men who thought they were untouchable. A grand jury was called, but then everything changed. The investigation was shut down, witnesses were discredited, and one key figure, Gary Caradori, a private investigator, died in a suspicious plane crash while gathering evidence. Officially, authorities claimed there was no credible evidence of a trafficking ring. But to this day, many believe the Franklin case was buried to protect people in high places. Whether it was conspiracy or coincidence, one thing's clear: too many voices were silenced for the truth to ever come out.
Like these things, they've been going on even on a small scale like that. Big scale like Epstein, small scale like Diddy. All these streamers that got all these hot girls on private jets with them, that take them all these crazy yachts, and you want to come on my stream? What do you think they're doing to come on? You got people having sex on stream now, people walking in on them. You know what I mean? Like it's still going on. The machine is never going to be over. When that machine's over, we're over. I mean, that's what gets the machine going. These kind of things, and it's going on to this day. To this day, there's always going to be a new scandal that comes out, new Netflix documentary on it. Does it ever end? No, it's just the next man up, next batter up.
I had the opportunity over the years to interview, again, people who have worked at the test site at Groom Lake. One gentleman spent 12 of his 30 years in black programs at Groom Lake. When I asked him, I said, first of all, do you believe in UFOs? And he looked at me with a straight face in one-on-one. He said, absolutely, positively, they do exist. I said, can you expand upon that? And he said, no, I can't. About a year later, we were talking about, again, activities at Groom Lake. And I asked him, I said, can you really tell me what's happening out there? And he said, well, there's a lot of things that are going on there that I won't be able to tell you until the year 2025. But we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious.
Things you didn't know about the Betty and Barney Hill incident. Number one, they were the first people to officially report an alien abduction in U.S. history. They claimed they lost 2 hours of time and had no idea how they ended up miles down the road. And when they got home, Betty found a weird pink powder on her dress. And both of them had tears in their clothes that they couldn't explain. And after the incident, they both started having the same reoccurring nightmares, leading them to do hypnosis to try to figure out what happened during that 2 hours. And what comes out of those sessions is what makes this case so famous.
Northern New Jersey is the #1 place in the country where they have the most UFO sightings.
Northern New Jersey?
Look it up, Jamie, if you get a minute, please, not to be rude.
But isn't that like near a couple airports?
No, it's closer to like, like when you live in New York City and you look at the Hudson River, they say that people go on their balcony, they're drinking coffee, they're talking on the phone, and they'll see a little flying saucer go by. I know for a fact that in 1975 and 1976, you could check me out on this. A UFO landed in Hudson County Park. I was a kid, and the next day the feds locked off the park. They had yellow tape. They had samples. Go look it up, dog. There's a liquor store, and the liquor store guy says he's seen the lights. You heard like the organ music that they play. They landed. A couple Martians got out and took samples and got back in the thing and took off. And witnesses, it's not just one guy that says, "I know UFO." It's people who got knocked on the door and said, "Did you see anything at 11:10 at night?" And they said, "You know what? There were lights flashing outside."
I mean, right after 1947, the Roswell crashed, and all of a sudden we had cell phones. I mean, the cell phone came out in 1947. Most people don't even know that. The whole thing about the transistors and things like that, all this stuff was coming out right around 1947. 1947 was a pivotal year because of everything they were doing with the Babylon working ritual, plus the Mount Rainier sighting, and then the Roswell crash not even 2 weeks later. But look at all the other things that were happening in 1947.
Before 9/11, the day before the attacks, Rumsfeld gave a press conference where he talked about trillions of dollars missing. The day, then a plane slams into the very part of the building where they were doing the accounting, blows up half the fucking building of the Pentagon, blows up a wall. Donald Rumsfeld was on, where was it, the White House lawn?
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3.
Okay, now, again, somebody told you that literally, like right before 9/11 happened, they said they couldn't track $2.3 trillion. No, that didn't happen. That did not happen, but it did happen.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so think about what Kennedy said. Think about what you saw when you saw that Vice movie where Dick Cheney, who was the CEO of Halliburton, becomes a vice president and gets billions of dollars in no-bid contracts. Now think about what we just saw with Donald Rumsfeld saying they couldn't find $2.3 trillion. I don't know where what. I don't know. It seems like we should have had it. So, like, we'll keep looking. Oh no, the spot where we looked just blew up.
Oh my God. What the
Find out
hell?
if that's true. If it was the accounting office, because this is what I love to say it because it sounds good. But let's make sure it's true that part blew up. But either way, that he did say that, and then they did get hit by a plane a couple of days later.
It's unbelievable.
It's so crazy, and no one talks about that $1 trillion.
Remember where
$1 trillion, 2.3 trillion. That's enough, not million, not billion, trillion. And people are still to this day, I don't know about from the World Trade Center thing, like still getting cancer and all that, but people that went to war are still to this day, every day. Somebody in the comments, let me know down below how many soldiers a day off themselves, right? It happens every day, y'all, every day, because of that 2.3 trillion. Like they don't care about us, y'all. That's where I'm trying to get.
talking about the conspiracy around the hurricane stuff?
Yep.
Yes. Literally after we stopped filming it, I saw like 10 or so posts talking about this area in North Carolina that is one of the world's largest deposits of lithium.
Oh gosh.
And it's in a residential zone.
Yeah, you can't mine it.
And they've gone to these people supposedly and said, we'd like to purchase your land. And they all refused.
Are you kidding me?
And now that exact same spot is
Wiped out.
This is Maui all over again.
It's lithium rich in this area that was wiped out.
And so now we have to keep an eye on that area because what the flip are they going to do there, dude?
But yeah, people won't be able to afford to rebuild. So if someone can come in and cover like the remaining mortgage, families will go somewhere else and start over. Leaving the land behind.
They're smart though, y'all. Like they're not gonna do it in a year. They're not gonna, okay, time to start getting lithium out here. They're gonna do it like in 50 years. They are planners. They have plan. They know what they're doing so that we don't uprise. They know what we're doing. They know what they're doing. I'm sorry. They're not going to do it in 2, 3, 4 years. They're not going to be out there doing construction over there mining. It's going to be in 50 years. By then, people are going to just not care. And the people that are going to care are going to be in that little community. Guess what? That little voice ain't going to do nothing. Not going to do nothing. Right? They know what they're doing. Unfortunately.
The Mickelson Safeguard Complex in North Dakota is one of the strangest places in the U.S., and it has even been theorized that it could be a headquarters for the Illuminati, considering its striking resemblance to the pyramid so often associated with the supposed organization. It was actually constructed as a missile deterrent site during the Cold War. Strangely enough, this $6 billion site was only operational for a single day.
$6 billion.
It opened October 1st, 1975, and then closed October 2nd, 1975.
What is Hangar 18? Where is Hangar 18? Hangar 18 is purportedly the location that the Air Force took the Roswell wreckage in bodies after the crash incident in 1947. This is a map of Dayton, Ohio from the 1950s. This is a map of the original Wright Field. There in the center is building number 18. But I'm here to tell you this is completely inaccurate. I'm from Dayton. I grew up there. Hangar 18 is part of an underground tunnel complex below the installation. Now, there's not much to be found about the underground complex at Wright Pat, but this picture is of the underground system in the neighboring university, Wright State University. Now, if the college has an underground complex, you damn sure the Air Force does too. Now, Wright Pat is the home to the Air Force Material Command. Wright Pat is the brain center of the Air Force. I got to fly an F-16 simulator when they were still developing helmet-mounted displays. I got to see the centrifuge, and I got to see a couple other things I probably shouldn't have. But back in the day, after World War II, Wright Pat was it. So Wright Field was undoubtedly where the wreckage and bodies were taken. I will dig much deeper into this for you very soon in an upcoming video.
There was some, first off, give the devil his due. Boy, that guy knew how to make a bomb. The guys who chucked the bombs into the crowd in front of Mendami's place
They didn't
were
know how
not
to
good
make a
at
bomb.
that.
No, they were not
Then there
good
was
at it.
another guy who was trying to take down the World Trade Center. He blew up a van
In 1993.
which
yeah.
didn't take down the Trade Center, but holy shit, McVeigh and that Ryder rental truck, holy crap, was that thing? And I mean, it
Well, it
literally
took the face off a federal building.
right. It did something. There's some statistic.
169 people killed.
Insane. There's some statistic that like the axle from the truck was
Correct.
found like 5 miles away or
It
something.
wasn't
Like,
5 miles away. It
well,
was
such a
but
crazy
that's how
explosion.
they cracked the case initially.
Right.
They were
There was
able
a-
to get the VIN number, the number off the axle,
Right.
trace it back to the rental car agency, figure
Right.
out that McVeigh and Nichols rented the thing, and then
Yes.
they were at an
Dumbass.
ATV
It's
out.
not
He
that
was
much of
driving
a
his yellow
genius.
Mercury Marquis on the highway.
Right.
They
Shave
pull him
off the
over, he's got a
VINs.
loaded,
Use his
Glock in
own
the car,
credit
but he
card
doesn't
to
pull
rent
out
the
cops,
truck.
and they arrest him. They didn't know who they had for the first few hours.
By the way, for those who fight me on the death penalty, first things first. Every poor black guy who gets fingered by some old woman who says he robbed a liquor store and the
Right.
guy's dead, I don't need that guy put to death.
No.
If there's gray area,
No.
if you take out 160 something, and including a preschool,
Right.
well, then I need you put down.
Yeah.
Number one.
No
and
problem with that.
Number two, I don't need you in the system for 45 years painting clowns and penning autobiographies and being interviewed by Geraldo. I just want you put down.
Right.
And McVeigh, they just put him down.
Did you ever
Fun fact that he was actually planning on doing that in the Phoenix, downtown Phoenix federal building. Now I don't remember what made him change his mind to Oklahoma, but he was originally supposed to do that in Oklahoma. And my dad was actually, when that bomb went off, was in the basement of the federal doing deliveries down there of the federal building. He used to deliver food, Shamrock Foods. He used to drive those trucks and deliver. So he was down there in the basement when that bomb went off, but they were supposed to do it in the Phoenix federal building.
of a secret CIA experiment on like an arcade game? So in 1981 in Portland, Oregon, a new game like appeared in a bunch of different like arcades across the city like that. And it was called Polybius. It became one of the most popular games like that. So everybody would line up trying to play it. But like as people would play it, like things would start happening to them. Like a lot of people reported saying like they'll get like aggressive headaches. A lot of people even said like they would black out for like hours from playing that game. A lot of people also reported seeing like people in like black suits come into like the arcades and like take down notes and take down data of people like playing the games and just sneak off and like walk out the back like real quick. And then once like more people started hearing about it, all the game machines were gone. And then people started digging into like who created the game and the developers. If you look at the developer's name, it was a German company. I can't pronounce it, but if you translate it into English, it means sensory deprivation. So people think that this was like a government experiment to like control people's minds, because this was after when people found out that in the 50s they was doing mind control of people.
That's crazy. To do it to kids is crazy.
This guy UFO Gerb did a video, the 1965 Kecksburg, Pennsylvania UFO crash. They first saw it over the Great Lakes. People thought it was an asteroid at first. Then when it went over Pennsylvania, it did like a 90-degree turn. Crashed in the woods. They got accounts from all these different people. They said it was like the size of maybe like an SUV, but it looked like an acorn. And around the rim, it looked like they had hieroglyphics. And one of the guys who gave this account was a volunteer firefighter. They all thought it was a plane crash. So they showed up thinking that, okay, we got to rescue people, put out a fire.
Could you imagine?
They said this acorn UFO was just sticking in the dirt, and they're like, what? And he said within 5 minutes, military was there with guns and said,
Get out of here.
Get out of here. This is a secure location now. And they were forced off the location.
Lucky they survived too.
Yeah. He said that both
can't go
his
there?
son and daughter have joined the military, and they're not able to advance further because their name is attached to their father. He's on this list now.
They flagged him.
Yeah, he's definitely flagged.
Dude.
Yeah, for real.
Sorry, Demi. Sorry, Zoe.
Vampires in Rhode Island.
Daddy
In the late
messed up.
1800s, parts of New England were gripped by a real-life vampire panic. A disease called consumption was wiping out entire families. But since no one understood how it spread, some locals turned to an old superstition. They believed that people who died from consumption would rise from the grave and drain the life from the rest of the family. To stop this, believers dug up the bodies of their loved ones and burned their organs. The most famous of these cases involved a young woman named Mercy Brown in Rhode Island. Let me know in the comments below if you want to hear her story.
In the 1950s, the U.S. military ran Operation Big Buzz and Operation Big Itch. Mosquitoes were released over populated areas and military bases to study how biological agents could spread. Civilians weren't informed. There was no consent. People later reported unusual swarms and illness concerns, but no explanation was given at the time. Years later, the programs were acknowledged. That matters, Emma, because it proves something. Mosquitoes weren't a theory. They were a tested delivery method. Fast forward to today. Mosquito releases haven't disappeared. They've been reframed as public health. Genetically modified mosquitoes are now released in populated areas to combat diseases like dengue and Zika, with funding and support from organizations backed by Bill Gates, often through biotech partners like Oxitec. Same method, same population level exposure, different explanation. If a delivery system was once used on the public without consent, and that same system is now normalized, where does oversight actually begin, and where does it end? Comment mosquito. If you think this kind of testing never really stopped, follow for documented history like this and share it with someone who still thinks these methods are new.
So this secret room is hidden inside Mount Rushmore, and it was built to send a message to whoever finds it thousands of years from now. It's called the Hall of Records, and it sits behind the carved heads of the presidents. You see, the original sculptor, Gutzon Borglum, didn't want Mount Rushmore to just be 4 giant faces. He was worried that someday, far in the future, someone would look at the mountain and have no idea who these people were, who carved them, or why anyone would do this in the first place. So he came up with a weird idea. Behind the monument, workers started carving a chamber into the granite, a hidden archive that would explain America to whoever found it. Gutzon wanted to store documents like the Declaration of Independence, as well as records and the story of the country itself inside the mountain. But the room never finished the way he wanted. Gutzon passed away and the work stopped. So Mount Rushmore became super famous, but the chamber behind it stayed mostly unknown. Until, decades later, the idea came back. In 1998, officials placed a box inside a titanium vault. They sealed it under a granite capstone and filled it with 16 porcelain enamel panels. Those panels explain how Mount Rushmore was carved, why the 4 presidents were chosen, as well as who created it, and a short history of the United States. Visitors cannot go inside, and most people who visit the monument never see it or even know it exists.
What do you do?
Can you imagine like 100,000 years from now when America's just long gone, civilization, it's a new civilization, right? And they stumble across that. Those are going to be the gods, right? The English language is going to be, you know, like the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Like, what is this? Who are these people? Like, this is gonna they know what they're doing. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They put them up there like that. They're gonna be worshipped from the next civilization. Just like we look at the pyramids and how the heck did they do this, right?
I work security for Oak Ridge. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and I knew of Oak Ridge. You know, I didn't realize how close I was going to live to it. And I said, oh, what kind of things are you securing over there? He goes, from what comes out of portals or something like that. And I was like,
really?
This guy has no idea who I am.
Right.
I didn't tell him what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Nothing. And what the heck, you know? And I'm like, he drank too much.
Right.
He's drinking. He's drunk.
Boy.
He doesn't know what he's saying right now. So a few months goes by, actually more than a few months. It was October. And one of the people from that cookout had a birthday party, invited me and my wife and family. So we go to this restaurant. He was there again. And he's getting ready to go downstairs to get some drinks. And I just kind of, like, from a distance from across the room, just trying to be chill with it. I said, hey, man, what you said on 4th of July about portals and stuff, you're just kidding, right? He's like, oh, he goes, oh, no, I was serious. And then his wife goes, oh, no, he's serious. And I was like, oh, what? And then
kind of what we've been saying.
Everything came off the rails then, because I was like, okay, guys, I'm weird and I'm into this stuff. We need to talk. He said that through his orientation, he was told that in recent history, which in 2019, there was an article published out of Oak Ridge. The scientists literally said experiments with this was that they were looking for a mirror universe.
Right.
When everybody started throwing their hands up, they're like, whoa, what the heck? They're like, oh, we were just kidding. And it's like, you're scientists. You're not funny. And the jokes don't exist in your world.
They've said some pretty crazy stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said that apparently they were successful in opening a portal, and a sound came through that was so terrifying that it left everybody in the room running for their life. Like, they were terrified. Like, something physical came through, wasn't told to him as far as I'm concerned, but it was a sound, which is crazy. It's crazy they opened a portal and then that a sound came through. So fast forward, and one of his coworkers owns a gun range. And so his coworker reached out to me and said, hey, you know, so-and-so says that we should get dinner sometime. I'm like,
Right.
cool. I'm
Right.
about networking.
Yeah.
I go have dinner with him. We realized that we didn't totally understand why he even suggested we get together, you know? Dinner's over. We go outside. We're standing on the sidewalk, just kind of small talk before we part ways. We finally got around to the point of talking about what he does for a living, which he's a coworker. He does security there too. And we were talking, and he goes, and portals that open up in the same vein. And I was like, I wasn't going to say anything.
Right.
But he told me the same thing. Are you serious? And he's like, that's what we were told. Their training lasts months to secure that facility. They only hire people top level that have real experience in killing people with precision.
All the people that were talking about the shots coming from the grassy knoll, it's the fact that so many of the witnesses died in mysterious circumstances. They died from car accidents. They died from crime. They died from random acts of violence. Like, they did a calculation of what are the odds that all these witnesses would wind up dying the way they did, and it's like some spectacular number. They fucking killed a bunch of people that were there.
I'm sure you know this, but Vincent Bugliosi wrote, like, I think what might be the longest nonfiction single volume book ever written on the Kennedy assassination, remembering history or something like that. It's like 1,500
This
pages.
is Bugliosi that was involved in the Manson.
Yeah, he wrote like a book about the JFK assassination.
And if you read Tom O'Neill's book, it calls him a complete charlatan.
Yes,
Like he's a crazy person.
But yeah, I mean, if anyone has seen that book in person, it really is like 1,500 pages of like the densest, tiniest little print. And it was so long that it came with a CD of the notes that were like 1,000 additional pages. They couldn't fit in the volume. And it got like a physical CD you had to put in your computer to see the notes. That
Oh my God. That's so crazy.
But I think that could be like the longest single volume nonfiction book that I've ever seen.
Skinwalker Ranch is a 512-acre ranch in Utah, infamous for decades of paranormal activity, from UFOs and poltergeists to humanoid sightings. And while Skinwalker has some well-documented incidents, such as magnetic fields, portals, radiation, and the appearance of a giant wolf, it's been over 30 years and this stuff has rarely been caught on camera. So how can we figure out if a place is truly paranormal or it's just a bunch of weirdos pulling a hoax? One way is to run ads on Google to people who tell Google about whatever phenomenon you want data on. We can geofence 50 miles around the ranch, let's say, and by keywords like I saw strange lights, or my cattle died, or my drone radio GPS isn't working. Now we'll get a better picture of just how many people experience weird stuff in the Uinta Basin region. Plus, this lets us bypass the classified happenings in the area, which has only inspired claims that it's used for Pentagon-funded research. Now, there's nothing to stop us from geofencing around Area 51 or wherever. Just because a place is weird and shady doesn't mean people don't use Google there. And so we can intercept paranormal experiences transposed to Google using commercial advertising tools.
The Bennington Triangle is an area in the far southwestern corner of Vermont in which a series of mysterious disappearances took place in the mid-20th century. The so-called Bennington Triangle is named after the town of Bennington, Vermont. Naturally, the Bennington Triangle mystery is baked in local folklore and legend, and it's believed that there is some sort of supernatural or paranormal force that caused the string of disappearances. But the Bennington Triangle is most famous, of course, for the disappearances of the mid-20th century, but there has been reported strange incidents over the years, dating all the way back to 1761. That year, New Hampshire Governor Benning Wentworth went to the area and reportedly saw weird flashing lights and heard screams coming from the trees and shadowy figures in the woods. People have reported experiencing these strange things even today. Many people say the area is home to Bigfoot, of course, and a high level of UFO activity.
So if that's true, then clearly there is something paranormal going on in this area.
So basically the theory is that it was actually a missile used as a false red flag initiative to start the war in the Middle East, right? So the FBI, this is factual, the FBI seized 85 security tapes, that's proper Norfolk, security tapes from the Pentagon, and only one remotely showed an object hitting the Pentagon. Out of 85 tapes, one remotely showed an object hitting the Pentagon. It was a single frame, and it was one single white streak. That's apparently a Boeing 757 100-ton plane one single frame. If a plane was about to hit the Pentagon, I think it would have picked up more than just a single white streak for a split second. Missile experts claim the object is too small to be claimed as a 757 plane and is more likely and more consistent with a cruise missile.
On June 21st, 1947, Harold Dahl was patrolling around Maury Island with his 15-year-old son Charles, a crewman, and his dog Sparky. They were looking for stray timber that had fallen off of boats. Timber companies paid for any logs returned to them. Around 2 that afternoon, Charles pointed at the sky. 6 donut-shaped objects hovered about 2,000 feet above the water. Harold cut the engine. The objects made no sound. Each was about 100 feet wide with a hole in the center. They looked like massive metallic tires with portholes around the outer rim. 5 of the objects floated in a circle around the 6th, which was losing altitude and moving erratically.
Yeah, was my ex-wife driving?
No.
Because swerving out of control, leaking fluids, and ruining vacations. That's her speciality.
She wasn't driving. The craft was directly over the boat, maybe 500 feet above them. Harold could see into it through the windows.
Yeah, did you see my ex-wife in there?
No! Do you want to hear about the UFOs or not?
Sorry. I'm still harboring a little resentment. Go ahead.
The wobble got worse. Then there was a deep but harsh crack. Then the craft started dumping material. Thousands of strips of thin metal rained down like confetti. Then came the heavy stuff. White, hot liquid metal. The hot metal hissed when it hit the water. Then heavy pieces slammed into the boat. Some the size of a baseball, but some as big as tires. Charles screamed when a piece burned through his shirt. Another hit their dog Sparky, killing him instantly.
Oh, that's too bad. They should have brought their cat.
Stop it. Harold tried the radio, but the equipment was dead. Harold had seen enough. He fired up the engine and ran the boat onto the beach. They hid in the trees and watched. The damaged craft rose and rejoined the formation. All 6 accelerated toward the open ocean. The encounter lasted about 20 minutes. Harold said maybe 20 tons of material had fallen from the craft. He took photographs. The objects in flight, the debris field, the damaged boat. That night, he met his business partner, Fred Crispin, who doubted the story. The next morning, Crispin sailed to Maury Island to see for himself. He found the debris exactly where Harold said it would be, covering the beach for hundreds of yards. Some pieces were still warm. Then he looked up. One of the craft hovered silently for 5 minutes before vanishing. He had the proof, photographs, physical evidence, and now his own sighting. Later that day, a stranger arrived at Dahl's door. Black suit, black hat, brand new Buick with no plates. And somehow this man knew every detail about the event. Harold Dahl had just met history's first Man in Black.
On December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Cars were bumper to bumper during rush hour when, without warning, the bridge failed, sending 64 people into the icy Ohio River. Investigators later traced the cause to a single cracked eye-bar, a hidden flaw that brought the entire bridge down. But here's the part people still talk about. In the year leading up to the collapse, dozens of Point Pleasant residents reported seeing a strange figure near the old TNT area, a tall, winged shape with glowing red eyes. They called it Mothman. Some people believe the sightings were warnings. Others say fear and coincidence filled the gaps after the tragedy. What's certain is this: the Silver Bridge collapse left a mark on Point Pleasant so deep that history and legend became permanently intertwined. And to this day, the town remembers both.
Devil's Lake in Wisconsin. This lake has everything. Dead giants, leviathan, serpents. It's in the mountains. It's a glacial runoff. And they speculate it could be 10,000 years old. The native people in that region, the Ho-Chunk people, talk about around this lake there was these red-headed giants that would terrorize the Ho-Chunk people. And so the Ho-Chunk people basically prayed to their god or gods or whatever to help get rid of these giants. One day there was this big storm that came over and it said fire rained down from the sky, killed all the giants. Ho-Chunk people said that for years the lake was red with the giants' blood.
Oh my gosh.
Holy moly.
That's not where it ends. This lake was inhabited by a giant wise serpent. It would also just consume and take people that would go by the lake. They tell the story of a thunderbird, giant sky being. So not necessarily a bird.
So that was just the nickname.
Yeah, this thunderbird went to battle with the serpent that occupied the lake. Said like this storm was just over the lake and it was just lightning. Ultimately, the thunderbird killed the serpent, and that's not where it ends.
Oh no!
Because even today, people report for the past 100 years they're seeing a giant serpent-like creature in this lake still. More weird is that the military has done multiple exercises in this lake.
Really?
Yeah, so they have restricted underwater zones. There's been reports of unmarked black vehicles after these sightings, and there's occasionally those like stealth helicopters that fly around this lake.
If they're getting involved, there's something there.
Something there.
That's gotta be.
Everyone dies. The Yellowstone supervolcano would kill almost all of us. That's a supervolcano that is a continent killer. The whole fucking country dies. And it happens every 600,000 to 800,000 years. And the last time it happened was like 600,000 years.
See that?
I've talked to enough people really educated in the history of ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, and the evidence of natural disasters wiping people out and people having to start from scratch, this giant never-ending cycle of getting knocked back into the Stone Age and then rebuilding to a new version of complex society. There was a Toba volcano in Indonesia 70,000 years ago they think knocked the human race down to a few thousand people. Holy shit. Volcanoes are hundreds of thousands of years of activity, and they just fucking blow, and you never know when it's going to happen. They create fucking islands in the middle of the ocean. That's what Hawaii is.
Yeah.
And now you go vacation there and put fucking suntan lotion on, sit out there and have margaritas. You're on a volcano.
Ooh, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're just trying something different, y'all. Like I said, trying to boost the channel, trying to broaden my horizons, trying to do new things. Now we're still gonna do the TikTok conspiracy compilations, right? But I want to start adding maybe these in, like doing a full video on the music industry, a full video on Hollywood. Maybe we can take these conspiracies all over the world and do like the craziest 7 wonders of the world conspiracies, or conspiracies that ended up being true, just a whole bunch of different topics where we just focus on one topic. Let me know what you guys think of that. Also, I got like 2 off days a week, so I'm thinking on one of those off days to doing something a little different here, where instead of doing TikTok reactions, we'll do like where I react to like 3 different YouTube videos. If you guys remember when I used to go live, I've only gone live a couple times, but that's what I used to do. I used to react to like different YouTube. Now we would do, instead of a 30-second TikTok clip, it'll be like the full 10-minute interview of that clip. You know what I mean? So, just trying to evolve, y'all, trying to evolve and get better at this, because it does get repetitive, y'all. My views are up and down, and I kind of know why, because it's just repetitive over here. So let me know what you guys think of those ideas. Let me know what you think of this video, y'all. We'll take it all over the world. We're gonna try new things over here. I'm gonna get out of here. It's an hour and 17 minutes, probably one of my longest videos I ever uploaded. You gotta leave a like. This is Segovia signing out of the man cave. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one. Later.